They say your first deal is the hardest. It took Michael Butler 5 months to get his first deal. Skip ahead just over a year later, he's done 20. We're talking about how he's been able to evolve in his business here in the last year, right here on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Hey, welcome in again, everyone, to the Fearless Investor Podcast. You're listening to me, Kyle Stanley. And if you have not already, go check out fearlesskyle.com. That's our website. And you can get so many different resources. You can check out, of course, if you're listening to the podcast or watching on the YouTube channel, you can check out either of those channels right there on fearlesskyle.com. But more so, I want to encourage all of you, if you have any interest in anything that's being talked about on these podcasts, not only connect with the guests and get onto their channels. A lot of them are doing podcasts and YouTube channels as well. But if you want to get connected with me to learn more about these topics of what we're talking about, is specifically Airbnb related, I would love to have a conversation with you. fearlesskyle.com/consultation. You can book a 15-minute call with me absolutely for free. Love to be able to connect. Now, today we're talking with my good friend, Michael Butler. Michael and I started our journey literally within days of each other, early January 2019. And I remember meeting him in a meetup group. And when we shook hands, it was just kind of one of those things that you get these meetup groups and you get to meeting a lot of people and you can kind of tell who's serious and who's not serious. And I could just tell that Michael was one of those guys that was serious, that was looking, was hungry. He was setting his buyers list up. He was cold calling. He was door knocking. He was driving for dollars. And it was very early on. I could tell he was going to do a deal here pretty soon. It took him about 5 months. We talked about his first deal. Go back to one of the first episodes we ever did here on the Fearless Investor Podcast when it was called Fearless Flipping, by the way. And listen to that. Listen to his backstory. The guy's a former teacher. He's a football coach, and he was really juggling a lot of things to be able to get that first deal. But now today, he's doing 1 to 2 deals per month. He's done over 19 deals since we had him on the show back a year ago. And we're talking about what has evolved in him, in his business, in his strategies, in his network to be able to get him to be at this point where he's just thriving. And we're going to talk about a couple of those deals too, so that you can see exactly what he's doing and how he's getting them. But I'm so excited for you to hear this episode today. I hope it brings you a ton of value. Let's get to it with Michael Butler. All right, guys, like I said in the intro here, I'm really excited to have Michael Butler back on the show. Michael and I were on, I want to say it was like July of last year. So it's been almost a year and a half. And at that time, we were talking about your very first deal and how, you persevered. It took you 5 months to get that first deal, but the first one had a payoff of right around 20,000. And now I'm like, seeing on Facebook that Michael's like flirting with a 6-figure month. And I'm like, whoa, like what's going on here? I want to get Michael back on the show and talk about all the things that you've done since that first deal and just how much you've evolved. So Mike, thanks for jumping back on with us, man.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's give people a snapshot of where your business is at today. And I want to encourage anyone, if you haven't heard Michael's story, go back to, like I said, I think it was like July or August of last year. You were one of the first episodes that we released. And you can just learn all about what Michael's doing. And you're still teaching too, right?
I was substitute teaching, but with COVID and everything, there's no job for substitute teachers. So I've been a full-time investor since March.
Hey, and that's obviously showing because you're having a huge month right now. So just bring people up to speed about everything that's going on in your business.
Okay. Well, shoot, since last year, since we last talked, I've been able to consistently, close 1 to 2 deals a month. Obviously looking to ramp that up. We're not looking to ramp it up. We've been able to do that, but now just figuring out how we're going to be able to consistently, push to 3, 4, 5 deals a month. Been able to scale it out for the most part, so I'm not as much as a one-man show. Some of the still some of the core principles is still me. But I think when it comes to the marketing, one thing that I did learn within this year and a half is that marketing is definitely consistency in your marketing is going to be something that's going to kill or help your business thrive. So that's something that I've made sure that wouldn't happen to me again. So I do have 2 cold callers as of right now. That's strictly commission based. And then I have one caller that I have through our buddy Stratton's Call Magicians.
That's awesome. So has that been your main source of marketing, the cold calling?
Cold calling has been the most consistent marketing for me. I think the best, the marketing stream that's produced the most so far has been text messaging.
Okay.
And that's something that I kind of take over right now. I haven't outsourced that, but definitely generating leads with cold calling has been great for us.
So it's funny because you just hear so many times from people like, "Oh, I tried text messaging, it didn't work." Oh, or cold calling is something that I just don't think is going to make me as much as if I did, direct mail or bandit signs or whatever have you. Why have you found so much success with both of those? And B, why do you put most of your time and effort into using both of those streams of marketing?
Because I believe, I mean, when I started, again, like most investors, when they start, um, you're going to start off with the cheapest marketing form that there is, and it's going to be either driving for dollars, and it's going to come down to cold calling. So I did a lot of cold calling within the last 2 years. And so I really believe, like, me, I'm a football coach. And so I really believe that cold calling is the fundamental principles of being able to generate leads. So when I talk about how text messaging has been performing so great for me, is because I do have a lot of experience with cold calling, and in no way am I, great at it. And it's actually something I plan on investing in myself in moving forward, is a little bit more sales training and stuff like that. But with text messaging, yes, it's a great thing to get inbound leads coming into you, but at the end of the day, those leads, they end up on the phone. So at some point, once the seller is interested in selling, you have to be able to have a cold calling skill to be able to hop on the phone and still be able to um, still be able to get on there and still be able to pull motivation and all those
Yeah.
factors out of it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's maybe why people haven't been successful with text messaging, just because they keep it at text? They're trying to close deals just through texting and don't bring it to the phone?
Yeah, 100%. I think people use text messaging as a way to get over a fear of having a cold call,
Hmm.
not understanding that if you become great on cold calling, you're able to convert a lot more of those text messaging leads. Now, because if you're going straight to text messaging, you have no idea what to do once someone gets on, once they tell you the condition of the property and kind of their timeline to sell and a little bit of their motivation. But until you're able to hop on the phone with somebody and really dig into that motivation and dig into the timeline, dig into some of the condition of the property, they'll give you a screenshot through text messaging on what's going on with that property. But you have to be able to have a skill to hop on the phone with them and be able to dig more and get some more 4K pictures, right, or some 4K videos of exactly what's going on in that property in order to be able to negotiate and close a deal.
There you go. I love it. I know you said that you still are needing to put more time, energy, money into learning and developing the skill of cold calling. But I got to imagine, over now doing this nearly 2 years, that you've probably felt yourself get a lot better at cold calling, and maybe some other points in your business too. Am I right?
No, for sure. You have more of a, you start off with a script, and after doing it for so long, you have an idea of what answers you need or what details you need to be able to formulate a decent offer. And then from that point, that's when you want to dig in a little bit more on your experience and some of your training to be able to start getting those prices down, right? So so I think where I am right now, I'm able to get a lot of information out of people. I'm able to come up with a good price to help both sides. But I could definitely get better at talking down some of those numbers.
So yeah, I mean, that's a good point there. I mean, I feel like a lot of people talk about this. I mean, I've had conversations with like Zach Ginn about this too, where he says, when I first started, I would get this price, but I know if I went and did that deal again, I would get a much lower price because I've just
Yeah.
developed that skill. Is that a skill, or is it really more of just the confidence of knowing that, like, you are more so in the driver's seat than the seller if you have the right seller? I mean, where do you think that is coming from?
I think it's both. I think when you have the skills, your confidence
Mm.
obviously elevates. Same thing like in any type of sport, right? you can have a skill of being fast, you can have good hands and stuff like that. I'm a wide receivers coach. But when it comes down to the technique and how you're running routes or how you're making these phone calls and how you're asking certain questions, those are skills. Those are techniques that you build
Mm.
that ultimately gets your confidence a whole lot higher to take more risk, right?
That's good, man. So was there one point in your business, especially since the last time we talked? I mean, we literally were only talking about deal number one, and now this is deal like, I mean, what do you know which deal you're on now? Have you kept track
We
of that?
we did we did eight last year, and I'm on 11 this year, so it'd be deal
19.
20, deal
Yeah.
19, yeah.
So you're closing in on doing 19 deals since we last talked, which is incredible.
Take that back 20 because we'll close one today.
Okay, there you go. So
Yeah.
there's got to be some point. Do you look back at some point in your business where you're like, okay, now I've got it. Like it's that aha moment, that click moment of like, okay, I knew how to get a deal, but it would take me some time. And now it's like, dude, the deals are coming to me. I feel like this snowball is rolling. Was there any point in your business like that?
Yeah, I would say it was really when I had met with a seller, and it actually didn't turn into a deal, which is funny because I know 100% if I had it locked up at the same price, I would have been able to dispo that deal. But it was more the conversations that I was able to have with that seller, where I really learned that just by being myself, and you never want to feel like you are chasing a deal, but when you're new in it, you kind of are, because you're pushing for a deal, but you're also pushing for proof of concept. You're trying to get some confidence and stuff like that. And one thing I learned with this seller was that by being myself, naturally somebody should already want to work with me,
Mm,
and so it teaches you that when you are marketing and you are trying to generate leads and stuff like that, you don't spend as much time on people who have no motivation. Whereas I think early on, you would continue on conversations that are leading nowhere. You hop on the phone with someone and you're going to continue to talk and see if you can kind of persuade them. And one of
right.
the lines that I really use is like, "Hey, if you sell your house to me, great. If you don't, great. But at the end of the day, my interest is making sure that you have enough information to make an informed decision, because I
Mm,
understand that people aren't able to make decisions when they're not informed on the type of decision that they need to make. And if that leads you to me, great. And if it doesn't, even better. But I'm gonna be your number one supporter, number one cheerleader in the background. You know what I mean? And so I think people take that and they take it as genuine. I mean, I've had plenty of people on there, tell me thank you, and they didn't even sell me their house. But that goes a long way when it comes to word of mouth and getting referrals and stuff like that. Because if you treat people the right way, I mean, you're always going to be in the back of their mind when anyone comes up to sell a home.
it's so true. And there's so many people in this industry, I think, that do that. And there's so many people that don't do that. And you can tell right away the ones that are going to be successful because they care about helping the other person and getting the right price for the other person, for both sides. Um,
Yeah,
so it sounds like one thing that you would have changed going back would be just not trying to persuade people, but just, being able to find those motivated sellers, knowing how to identify them, and just, like you said, giving them that option and being more of a cheerleader to them. Um,
yeah.
I love that advice. I want to know, what else would you do differently if you were to, it's January 2019, you're going back to when you're first starting. What would be one thing that you would tell brand new Michael Butler investor to do and focus on?
To niche down.
Okay.
um,
I like it.
and niching down could mean so many different things. I've heard people niche down and they do tax delinquent. People niche down, do absentee, right? It could be based off of the list that you're pulling, or it can be if you're in an area like we are in Fresno. For me, it was Fresno for a new wholesaler or a new investor in general. Fresno's a big market. Now, if you've been in it for a while, we can market all to Fresno County, Tulare County, stuff like that, and you got a better grasp on what you're doing, so you're able to move a whole lot faster. But when you're still learning, I say find a zip code, and become an expert in that zip code.
Mm,
Because one thing that you can't fool somebody. I don't want to say fool someone because that's kind of the wrong wording, but people know if you are confident in what you're talking about, and they can hear when you're not confident.
mm,
And one thing that I knew with Southwest Fresno, we call it the 6, right? 93706 was an area, it was a zip code that I niched down to. And I told myself, hey, I got to become the best at running comps in this area. I got to be the best when it comes to negotiating it, coming up with repair costs. And by doing that, I was able to notice little things that changed in neighborhoods or in that neighborhood. With, as months went by, I could tell, like, hey, there's been no movement here. Hey, someone just bought this property, or hey, these people are moving out. But one thing I really knew when I was talking to homeowners is that I knew that their home was either a 3-1 or a 2-1, 3-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 1 bath, or 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I knew that they were going to be between 700 to 1,000 square feet, and I knew that it was going to take between $25,000 to $30,000 to fully renovate those properties, and that the ARV on them would be 140 to 150,000. So I knew my end buyer would like to be into the purchase with rehab and purchase price at 112.5. Right.
Okay.
So it gave me room to negotiate. Whereas if I was just using the 75% minus repair costs and your fee, that's going to put you around, 50, 60, $70,000. Whereas once you get an idea of an area and where people like to be and what some rehabbers spend on their rehabs, I knew I was able to go in there and spend 80, 90, $95,000 when I'm negotiating with these sellers. And most of the time that helped me lock up a lot of these deals.
Okay. So you talk about niching down to one zip code. Are you just throwing a dart at the board and figuring out where that's going to be, or were there some pre-qualifications of why you liked the 93706 area?
It was an area where there was a lot of distress. I knew that the price points were low. Um, and not to be blunt about it, but I'm a Black man, and Southwest Fresno is a lot of our Black and Hispanic communities. So I just knew that I would be someone that they would see, um, and it would help me essentially get through the door. Not saying that it was always great,
Mm-hmm.
but I know just how it would be taking me coming over there and doing something like that. That it would be a little bit easier for me to be able to do
Sure.
that.
No, that's great. So for me, I'm thinking about this and I'm hearing these numbers that you have now. If I'm kind of like a brand new investor right now and I'm thinking about trying to do what you're doing and niching down, it sounds to me like you're saying, being able to identify the distressed areas, being able to figure out, what your strengths are going to be with the types of sellers, and how you're going to be able to relate to
Mm-hmm.
them as well. Now, what about the buyers? I mean, would you go back and say, okay, let's get that buyers list before I even start going out there? Or would you try to get the properties and then find the buyers?
I 100% go get a deal first,
Yeah.
because buyers, at the end of the day, there's going to be a buyer for everything, right? And that and that's when it comes, I think, later down the road when you want to start diversifying your buyers list, because there are going to be your buy and holds, there are going to be your flippers, there are going to be your people who are looking to just hold some money over there so they can avoid tax penalties, right? So it really doesn't matter at that point. I think you really just need to get good at finding deals.
Cool. I love it. What is your favorite deal of the 19 that you've done since we last talked? What has been your favorite deal? Walk us through like the whole thing from start to finish.
My favorite deal has probably been one of my most difficult deals. It was a deal that I had got under contract, I believe, August or September of last year. It was on the west side of Fresno. I got it locked up at a pretty decent price. That's relative based on the condition that the property was in. The great thing is that it was vacant, so that definitely helped when it came to dispoing. Um, and I originally had it disposed and everything within a few weeks. The seller had told me that it was not a living trust, but it was, man, what is it called? Pretty much they're allowed to live in it until they died, but they no longer owned it. I can't think of the word for it right now.
Okay. I'm not sure
You
I'm
you know what I'm
familiar.
talking about?
I'm not
It's
sure I'm
it's
familiar with
pretty
that.
much like his children were on the title of the property, but he was allowed to live in the property for the life of, not, it's not like a living trust or anything like that. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
But pretty much it was going to have to go through um, the children. The problem that I realized with the children is that there were 3 daughters, there were 2 sons. 2 of the sons had been deceased. So
Oh, wow.
obviously probate was going to
Right.
need to get done for the to get signatures for the two children. But since the property was under a certain value, we were able to go the affidavit of small value route, which technically would only take about 2 to 3 weeks to get those documents sent into the courthouse, have an appraisal done, and stuff like that. After we found the heirs and stuff like that,
So
three of the daughters.
pause
Go
for a
ahead.
second. What the affidavit of what now? Can you explain that a little bit more?
It was an affidavit of small value, and I believe if a property is worth under $150,000, a full probate wouldn't be needed. Again, I'm not a
Okay.
probate attorney, so I'm not 100% sure the exact terms, but
Got it.
I knew based off of the condition of the property, since it didn't, the appraisal wouldn't come in at a certain price, it had kind of allowed you to fast track the probate process and almost
Okay.
avoid it.
Cool.
With the two sons that were deceased, one of them was married and had a daughter. Both of them were on board, so we needed those two to sign the affidavit, the appraisal, and then have that sent to the court, and then the court pretty much would put it in the wife and the daughter's name, so then they can sign for the father, right? And then for the other son, he got married probably a few months before he passed away, and his widow was pretty much estranged from the family. It was
Oh
just
boy.
bad blood there.
Got it.
She was an elder lady, probably in her 70s. Went down to her apartment. The family knew where she stayed. They tried to reach out to her. She thought they were trying to screw her over,
Mm.
just sell the house from underneath her and not give her no money. I came in as, pretty much as neutral party to let her know, like, hey, I'm in place to pretty much make sure that this doesn't happen. I've paid for the probate attorney to make sure that you're taken care of. She wanted nothing to do with it. Again, she probably didn't understand it. So we probably spent about 4 or 5 months, because we had to get her signature to even have on the appraisal. And then we needed her signature on the affidavit, which had to be notarized. So it was literally hit and miss with her. One day I'll go over,
Yeah.
she'll open it. One day I'll go over, she won't even come to the door. She'll act like she's not there. So eventually we were able to get her to sign that. Got it all to the closing table. The day of the closing, what happened? I ended up paying her niece $1,500 just to make sure that she continued to help me get this thing to the to the closing table.
Okay.
The day of closing, everyone signed. We had to get this this lady in to sign. Her niece picks her up, and she's like, "I'm not going."
Oh
So,
gosh.
and so we're like, "Oh my god," So we ended up having to reschedule it with the title company. The next day or 2 days later, they're able to get her down there. The niece forgot to grab the ID.
Oh.
They pulled up to the title company, didn't have the ID, and I'm like, man, if she doesn't have her ID and you guys got to go get it, there's no way you're getting her back. Luckily, she was able to take her back, get her back up there, get her to sign. We were able to close it, and yeah.
Oh my goodness. So do you remember what your fee was on that?
We closed that one in. Let me see. We closed that one, I believe, in March. I made $29,000 on that one.
Worth it?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I love to
100%.
hear.
And
That
that's what allowed me to pay the niece money. It allowed me to pay for the probate process. It was all about solving the problems. At the end of the day, some people can't do the probate just because of, they'll be sitting on a house that's a gold mine once it's repaired, but they don't have the money to take care of the things that need to get taken care of in order to sell it. So they typically would just sit on it, lose it to a tax sale, whatever it may be. But this house was free and clear. And I just knew that I was gonna have to hold some hands throughout the process. And that's what I did. I tell people I get paid to solve problems, and the bigger problems that I solve, typically I get paid the most.
It's good, man. I love it. And that's all this is, just solving problems, right? So you're one of the best at being able to do that. And I love that you're just, even when the deals that you and I are talking about that I'm doing, and you're just like, I can hear it in your mind, you're problem solving for every single deal, even if you're not a part of it. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's why I'm excited too, for you to start this podcast that you and Stratton are going to be doing. So give us a little bit of insight of what your podcast is going to be about, and then I would love for you to share with people where is the next step for you and your business and how you can collaborate with others.
Okay, so when it comes to the podcast, the name of our podcast is going to be Free Agent REI. We came up with that because, as you know, me and Stratton both played football at Fresno State. Stratton actually got a tryout with the Seahawks, I believe, right? And I went nowhere, right? I went to go become a teacher, and it's kind of like a joke, you know. We had something that we invested a lot of our time and our lives in, which ended up being sports, and here we are, quote unquote, free agents. And luckily, we both were able to find real estate and change our lives. And so that was really just the thing. A lot of people can relate to the free agent part of it because it doesn't have to be specifically sports, right? Somebody could have wanted to go do whatever their first career was, and whatever, in a time of COVID, right? You lose your job. Now, essentially, you're a free agent, right? And so now you're looking for something else that you can get into to change your life. And so that's where the bond comes close when it comes to real estate, because we both were able to find real estate. I think the main principle of it is going to be, we'll be doing lives on Facebook, and then from that point we'll release it onto podcasts and YouTube. But we want to make it pretty much like an open discussion, because we'll hop on the phone, man, twice, 3 times a week, and next you know we're talking on the phone for an hour or two. So we just pretty much said, hey, the conversations that we have can be valuable for somebody.
Yep.
And if we just went ahead and took those conversations and threw them on a podcast, maybe someone would find value in that. So we wanted to be able to keep that same principle of having an open dialogue or discussion. So as of right now, there's not going to be an exact topic that we're going to go into. There will be times where we do want to lead it off that way. But with us launching it on Facebook Live, originally, is we want to be able to have people come in, ask questions. Anyone looking to get into real estate, anyone looking into trying to scale a business or hiring callers. We want it to be for anyone in the field of real estate who has any type of questions. They always say no question's a dumb question. So bring it on to the podcast, bring it on to Facebook, ask those questions. We're going to go ahead and answer them all to the best of our ability. And then we're going to push it out to YouTube and the podcast and keep it going that way.
Love it. Do you have a release date or idea of when you're starting?
No, this kind of, it was an idea that kind of just came up. I mean, again, you talk about two visionaries, right? So we're slowly going. We finally came up with our name of it and stuff like that. We know kind of what we want to do. So it's really just, finishing those little intricate details so we can bring it to the people.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, people can obviously connect with you on Instagram. Any other places you want people to connect with you, and any specific asks that you have from people?
Yeah, you can connect with me. The biggest one I would say would be on Instagram. It'd be Michael Butler _Jr. And from that point, I mean, I'm just looking to be able to bring, when it comes to our business, obviously I'm working on scaling our business. Our long-term goal is to be able to build rental portfolios and stuff like that. We're looking into doing some out-of-town investing, some local investing. Nothing's really cut out for us. We want to make sure that we look at all those elements and make sure we're able to make great decisions on that half. But yeah, if you're looking, or if you're someone who's looking to invest money, you have extra money sitting in your bank and stuff like that, and you've always wanted to do something with it, we're definitely looking to be able to bring value to somebody by bringing them investment opportunities when it comes to real estate. Obviously, those investments are secured by the real estate, by the real asset in itself. So if you're someone that's looking to invest in real estate but don't necessarily know how, but you got the money and you want to do it, definitely reach out to me on Instagram, and we can formulate a plan to where we can better serve each other.
Perfect. Guys, go connect with them. And Michael, I'm just so happy for your success, man. You and I started, obviously right around the same time, and to be able to see what you've done in such a short amount of time, it's super inspiring. And I hope everyone else is inspired by this too. But overall, thanks for helping our audience today to conquer the world of investing, my man. Show notes for this one, we're going to do fearlesskyle.com/Mike Butler 2020. Mike Butler spelled exactly how it sounds, and then 2020 for the year. So guys, connect with him, especially when the Free Agent REI podcast comes out, and Facebook Live. Just go onto his Instagram and ask him when and where and how to connect on that free agent REI when it's coming out, so that you know how to be able to just get in the noggin, the brain, and the mind of Michael Butler and Stratton Brown when they do release this podcast. I think it's going to be an awesome experience for you all to be a part of. And I just hope that today brought you a ton of value. I'm so excited for this guy's success. And I know that if he can do it, you guys can do it too. So go out there, conquer the world of investing. We'll see you next time.